All right, so page 10. There are 3 questions here, numbers 3, 4, and 5. And those 3 ask you to make a graph. And so what I'm going to do with you right now is show you how to make the first one all together so that you know how to make the other 2. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So let's do the first one. What do we always do first when we have a problem in front of us?
Breathe.
We breathe,
And read it.
and then we read. So everybody take a deep breath. All right, who's going to read it?
I'll read it.
Go ahead, Gabs. Number 3.
Make a graph with the D output as the independent variable and F input as the dependent. What is the relationship between the variables? What does this mean in the context of using a lever in your life?
All right, very good. So let's break this down a little bit, right? We have to make a graph, right? Now, what are the 2 variables that we are going to use in the graph? What does it say?
Now we input and input.
Yep, we've got the D output and the F input, okay? So what I would do if I was getting ready to do this is I would go over to did I make another copy? I'll just make another copy just to make sure I don't mess this one up. So I'll just do sample, okay? You don't have to make a copy. I'm just doing this for my own sake here. Okay. And so, there we go. Now, I just said that it was the D output, so I'm just going to highlight the D output column. This is me. This just helps me make sure that I don't mess up and do a different column than what I'm supposed to do. Okay? So I'm going to highlight both of those columns. You can do that. You don't have to do that. But let's look back at the actual thing. It said D output is the independent variable. Does that mean it goes on the X or the Y? X, yes, independent goes on the X, and that means F input will be the Y. Okay? So, that being said, let's take a look back at this. All right, what do we do to do a graph? Anybody remember?
You gotta go to insert.
Insert.
Table. No.
Chart. Yep, right there, chart. And remember, when it does that, it's probably going to come up with something that looks totally ridiculous and doesn't really mean anything. So here's what we then do. I'm going to make this smaller just to help myself out here. Okay. Now, go over to the chart setup. Okay. What do you think we need to do first?
Set everything to 0.
No, but good thinking. Hold on to that thought. Yeah, instead of a line, I don't know, mine's a line chart. I don't know what yours is.
Column chart.
But scroll down to a scatter chart. Okay? Scatter chart. And then, what do you think the next thing is? We need to make sure we have the right data range. Right now, mine's only doing the A column. All right? So I'm going to click the little waffle there. And then what I would suggest is clicking in the box that says trial and then dragging all the way down to select all of the data. That's what I would do. And then hit OK. So that means the data range will likely look like A1 to I8. Okay? Now, we can put in the x-axis. What did we just say was going to be the x-axis? The D output. Yeah. So let's see. Add x-axis. Oh, look. D output is one of the selections there. Okay? Because I highlighted the entire data table with the titles, it knows what to do. So I click on D output. Okay? And then I'll fix anybody's issues after I record the thing, okay? So then we have the series is the y-axis. Now what did we say our y-axis was going to be? Yeah, so let's go here, let's remove that one and add, what did you say? F input? Hey look, there it is. So we click on F input. Okay. And there, we have a graph, although it's kind of hard to read because, why? Yeah, there's no labels on the axes and stuff, right? So that's why we do have to go over to Customize and go to Chart and Axis Titles. Chart title, you can just make the chart title, just make it number 3, because this is problem number 3 that we're looking at. But then where it says chart title, you change, go to horizontal axis. Remember that's the independent. Horizontal we said was D output. And then we'll go to the vertical axis, which we said was F input. Okay. There, now we have a graph. Although it's also a good idea, if you go to series, go ahead and click trend line so you get a nice line of best fit. And I'm recording right now, so hold off. Okay. And you've got the trend line on there. I don't think you really need to put in the equation, but yeah, no, don't put in the equation. That's not helpful for us. So there you go. Now you have a graph to help you with number 3. And in fact, the last step here, you click on the 3 dots and you do move to own sheet. And now you can just relabel. Mine says chart 2. You can just relabel that to number 3.
We did this before.
Okay. And now you've got chart number 3. Now, the question asks, what is the relationship between the variables? Remember when we do relationship questions, we always say, as blank increases, the other blank increases, decreases, stays the same. So let's take a look at this. Now, the text is very small there, but what we can say is, okay, as the output distance increases, the F input, what? So as we go up in the output distance, what happens to the input force? It increases as well. So you would write, as the output distance increases, the input force also increases. Now, the last step that I ask you to make is, what does this mean in context of using a lever in real life? Here's what you say. D output is just how far the load is from the pivot point, from the fulcrum. So you can say, the further away the load is from the fulcrum, or from the pivot point, the harder it is to move. Because you have to put in more force, right? Think about it, right? The output distance is how far up the ramp, up the lever that thing was. So the further it goes up the lever, the more input force I have to put in, the harder I have to lift. So the further away that the load is from the pivot point, the harder it is to move. You could even go the opposite way. You could say, the closer the load is to the pivot point, the easier it will be to lift. Okay? All right, so that right there is how to do number 3. Follow the same procedure to do numbers 4 and 5. In fact, if it were me, to make it easier, I would copy and paste this graph, this graph, and then just change the X and Y axis. That's an easy way to do it.